But for more on what happened today from a political perspective is SABC News senior reporter Abra Barbier, joining us live now in Parliament with the latest update. Abra, a very busy day, of course, outside Parliament, inside Parliament, with those various press conferences taking place, ActionSA as well as the DA. In fact, let's start with the DA holding a media briefing outside the Western Cape High Court. Just give us a sense then in terms of what was said in that media briefing insofar as these court papers that have now been filed.
Good afternoon. Not just a very busy day, a very busy week for us here at Parliament. As you know, it's just been back-to-back news breaking all over the place. But yes, now the next step is for us to wait and see what happens in terms of the GNU partnership. Let me first start with the DA. As you said, they were in court this morning, the Western Cape High Court, where they filed papers. And the papers are split into two parts. The one part deals with what happened in the National Assembly yesterday, the passing of the fiscal framework, and the DA wants that to be overturned. It's an urgent application. It wants that to be overturned. It also wants essentially what the minister said and the passing of that framework to be suspended. So we are awaiting feedback on that matter. And then the second part of the DA's papers, it's a bigger fight, I would imagine. It's going to be a longer fight because it actually deals with the changing of the VAT Act. The DA mentioned that it deals with giving the Minister of Finance less powers within Treasury and actually giving Parliament more teeth when it comes to passing certain legislation dealing with finances. So if I'm understanding it correctly, that is the second part of the DA's papers. But of course, now more urgently, they are looking at having what happened yesterday in the House suspended, and that of course is directly connected to the VAT increase, which the DA is really against, which most parties are against. All parties, if I'm not mistaken, are against it, and the DA wants to make sure that that is absolutely no longer on the table. It's meant to be implemented on the 1st of May, and the DA says it's fighting hard to get that off the table and overturned. Studio?
And just give us a sense then in terms of an earlier briefing too that happened today, and that of course is ActionSA reflecting on its position in as far as, its standpoint and position in the budget. Again saying that it's a long way before the budget is finalized, and also still sticking to that point that, that won't be increased by the 1st of May. But we know, of course, that may not be the case necessarily.
That's correct. There are other processes that still need to, parliamentary processes that still need to be followed. But what ActionSA said this morning, and one of the other journalists specifically said, you keep saying that Treasury needs to come up with other alternatives, other avenues for revenue. And the journalist asked, what are your suggestions? Where else? Because they kept using the word hopeful. We are hopeful that Treasury can find money here or there. And ActionSA is adamant that they will find money. They spoke about how well SARS has been doing in recent months and how much SARS has been able to accumulate, and what a huge difference that will make if that is used instead of the VAT increase. It also basically said that at the end of the day, what the finance minister needs to do is capacitate SARS to collect more money. They spoke about how revenue is lost through illegal sales, illegal transportation across our borders, and they said that we need to be more, those areas need to be focused on and clamped down on, and that SARS needs to be capacitated better so that it can get revenue from those other streams. They also spoke about gambling and how much the gambling industry makes. This was actually a recommendation by BOSA, which Athol Trollip also raised today, attributing it to BOSA, of course, saying that is another way that government can find other avenues of revenue instead of going the route of the VAT increase. But essentially, ActionSA is adamant that that is a non-negotiable for them, that Treasury needs to come up with the other alternative. Otherwise, it will not be voting on anything else with the ANC again. Studio?
Abra, before I let you go, can you just, earlier on, before we got into the conversation about the budget, we know, of course, that there are still tensions within the GNU, particularly with its two biggest parties, that's the ANC and the DA. I mean, you've interviewed several ministers yesterday, several MPs as well, following that tabling of the budget vote, in fact, yesterday. Just give us a sense in terms of what is the sentiment on the ground in terms of relationships between the two parties? Where to from here for the GNU?
You know, that is the question of the day, and that is something that we are all keeping a close eye on, of course. When I asked, or when my colleagues and I asked Helen Zille today about the future of the GNU, what happened was I was initially told yesterday that FedEx would be meeting last night, and that obviously didn't happen. And then I now again heard that there's going to be another FedEx meeting at which they will then make a decision. Also, we asked ASA about them maybe joining the GNU, and they at this point said that they do not want to be part of a bloated cabinet. That, of course, doesn't necessarily mean they won't be part of the GNU, but if it comes to them maybe getting ministries, they just said they don't want to be part of a bloated executive. So we are waiting to hear. I am trying to get a sense from the DA specifically. I'm trying to infiltrate where I can just to get information. But everybody at this point is very, very tight-lipped on it. We are all waiting to hear. I mean, I wasn't monitoring the house sitting that's happening right now, but I glanced over and I saw, for instance, the Agricultural Minister John Steenhuisen was answering. So in terms of parliamentary processes and executive oversight, those things are all going ahead as normal. We did hear the presidency saying yesterday that government will be stable, even though what happened yesterday went down in the House. But it is something we're all keeping a close eye on. Everybody's obviously waiting in anticipation just to hear if the DA is going to make a decision about leaving. And then, of course, what one needs to consider then is the ministerial positions. Will that be affected? Will the president then have a cabinet reshuffle if that is the case? So there's going to be reconfiguration at a whole lot of levels if that is the case. But I am preempting things now because as things stand, we don't know what the outcome is. And we are waiting and hoping to get an update from parties or from the DA soon about what its future plans are in terms of its partnership in the GNU.